Preserved for 100 years in Pickle, a Jewish man wakes up in New York City and now is in search for his great-grandson. So I've been on the lookout to watch this movie ever since I first heard the concept back in February, March. I just thought the idea of the man falls in pickle batter or whatever it's called, and then he gets preserved for 100 years and wakes up in the future and then tracks down his great-grandson and tries to kind of get a relationship with him. I just thought the concept of that was just so intriguing, and I was really excited to see it as well. Having Seth Rogen's name attached made me want to watch it even more, especially because he's playing both roles, kind of like in a way of Adam Sandler doing Jack and Jill. I'm not comparing it to Jack and Jill or anything, it's a lot better than Jack and Jill, but it's the first thing that came to my mind when I heard the concept. And the movie as well, it is a comedy. Now bear in mind, I didn't really think it was that funny. There was a few moments in this movie where I chuckled, some moments where I thought it was funny, but overall I didn't really find this movie very funny. The movie worked for me in their emotional elements because this man did fall into Pickle Brine, I think it was called, for 100 years. He's stuck there for 100 years. His entire family's gone. His wife, his son's son, which is his grandson, and then meets his great-grandson. So all these three generations are just gone. He's been completely ripped from his life. The fact that he knew what everything was like back then, he knew how to live back then, but he has no idea how to live like now. I just really enjoyed that concept, and especially him going to the graves of his family, kind of growing into what he needs to be like now, kind of growing and living that, knowing that he can never go back there, he'll never see his wife again. All that emotional element worked for me in a lot in this movie. And even though I really enjoyed the relationships between our characters, the biggest downside to this movie is the fact that it feels really long. Now this movie is 88 minutes, 89 minutes, but it feels a lot longer, especially in the middle act. It just kind of drags so much because you see him succeed and then he kind of falls down again, then he succeeds again, then he falls down again, and it just does that about 4 times, and I think it could be even more. I think I'm kind of underestimating how often that happens, and it just drags the movie's pace so much because it just is the same thing over and over again in the middle act of the movie. But I like the introduction. The introduction in the movie kind of reminded me a bit of Up, the way you see Up, Carol and Ellie's life together, going through all the stages. It kind of reminded me of that as well. It was kind of filmed in a smaller aspect ratio in black and white, so it just made it feel a bit more like it was back then. And I kind of like the introduction to that, to the movie itself. And to talk about Seth Rogen, I thought he does 2 performances. I thought the older version of him was a lot better. The beard he had was actually grown, so I imagine that was a bit kind of more difficult to do this movie. The fact that they have to do all the beard scenes, then he has to shave the beard, and then he has to do the non-bearded scenes. So I can imagine that was very difficult. But the bearded version of Seth Rogen, I just thought he worked. As I said, the kind of relationships and the emotional element, the majority of it came from him, so it just hit a lot more. I enjoyed his character. I liked the way he acted, even though he was completely out of time. He knew how to live in the world back then, so he tried to bring what he knows from then to this time, see if it works for him. I just enjoyed that. Then the younger version of Seth Rogen, the more modern times, I thought he was just Seth Rogen. I didn't really like him. I thought, like, especially towards the end, he does have a bit more emotion to him, but I just kind of thought he was one note. Didn't really like that version of Seth Rogen whenever he came on screen, which isn't really much. He's not in the movie as much as the other version of Seth Rogen, but every time he was on screen, I kind of wanted him just to go and have the other one, because I just didn't really get as connected to this version. I didn't really like him as much as I liked the other version. So American Pickle, even though I really thought the concept alone when I first heard it was so interesting, I didn't really enjoy the movie. I thought it was way too long. For a movie that's only an hour and a half, I thought it was way too long. It felt very episodic in nature, where you can fully feel the 3 different stages, and it feels completely different to the stage before, so it felt very episodic to me. I thought Seth Rogen, though, as I said, was very much a standout. As I said, the relationships were really good, but the comedy fell flat. And for comedy, you kind of want the comedy to be a bit funnier, but for me, I just did not like the comedy whatsoever. A few belly laughs, well, not even a belly laugh, sometimes I just grinned, but other times, like, you could tell they were going for a joke, just really didn't land for me. But I cannot recommend this movie. Honestly, I didn't enjoy it. I think maybe you could enjoy it, but I like Seth Rogen, and this movie was a massive failure for me in terms of the Seth Rogen movie, so I will not recommend this movie to you. But if you have seen American Pickle, let me know your thoughts on American Pickle in the comments section down below. Click the subscribe button to come back next time I do a movie review, which is going to be New Mutants in the next day or so. I want to think about what I want to say for that one. So if I want to hear my thoughts on New Mutants, click the subscribe button so you can come back when I drop that review. And as always, thanks for watching.